Okay, let's talk about now the financial management process. We've talked about the type of money, what you're going to see as squadron commanders or air staffers or wherever you're going to be. So now let's talk about the process of how this whole thing works. And again, this is focused on the Air Force, but it is not unique to the Air Force. The other services have similar processes as well. At your wings, and even at the air staff and at the major commands, there are two groups that are going to meet. One is the financial working group, and these are the folks that work on day-to-day issues with financial management across the organization, across the installation. The chief of FMA, that is the budget officer for the wing, usually a young captain, is the one that chairs that organization, and the folks that vote at that are the resource advisors. So the resource advisor from your organization is going to this financial working group to represent you and your needs when you have a valid requirement that you need dollars for. That's why having a good resource advisor is important, and we'll talk about resource advisors a little bit later. So your financial working group handles the day-to-day stuff. When they're done making decisions, the information is then passed along to the financial management board, and that is the big picture, base mission, wing mission that happens at the financial management board. It's chaired by the wing commander. The voting members include the group commanders and the advisors of the squadron commanders. If you are a squadron commander, you will be sitting in those financial management boards. You need to be aware of what your organization needs, what your organization wants, and be able to articulate that. Because a lot of financial decisions are made at that financial management board, and they happen quickly. And if the wing commander asks you, what do you really need for your squadron, and you don't have the answer, you're not going to get the funds. It's going to happen as quick as that. So be prepared when you walk into the financial management board. You can bring your resource advisor. You'd be silly not to, because they're the expert on your financial issues. So take the expert with you in case there are questions. And it is the wing's official decision-making body. If your budget officer is good at the wing, they will have gone into the wing commander and pre-briefed this financial management board stuff to the wing commander, and the decisions will have actually been made before the board ever occurs. The only thing that will happen at the board is if there's actual questions, and it will be a chance for you to articulate your needs to that wing commander. Again, make sure you're in step with your group commander, because the last thing you want to do, and I've seen it happen a few times, is a squadron commander say they have a need or a requirement and pitch it at that financial management board. The group commander sitting at the table has never heard about it. That is not a career-enhancing move. So what happens in the financial management world throughout the year? And this is just important so that you understand the flow of things that are going to happen in your organization. October to December is when we receive our budget. This is when your wing should be getting dollars and money should start coming to your squadron, if a budget's actually been passed. Initial distribution will come through the financial management board. The financial management board is going to decide how much money you're going to get for the year. They're going to look at how you executed last year, look at how much money they have this year, and figure out if they can afford to pay you as much as you spent last year. So that's what you're going to get your budget to plan for the year from. Budget execution happens January through March. You're spending your money as normal. There may be a mid-year review. Important to remember this, because what happens in the financial world is come this mid-year review in about the March time frame, as we look at all the squadrons on base and we look at all the organizations across the major command or the directorates, and we say, who hasn't spent 50% of their money at this point of the year? And if you haven't spent 50% of your money, if you have a nice comptroller, they'll ask you why you haven't spent 50% of your money. If you have a mean, grumpy comptroller, they'll just pull the money. So be prepared. You as a squadron commander or as an exec or an aide, whatever your function is, be aware that that mid-year review may impact your budget significantly. And if you're not at 50% of your budget spent and you have a valid reason and a valid plan to get to the end of the year at 100% of spending your dollars, that's great. Just make sure you articulate it to that wing budget officer or that budget advisor. April through June, we have our budget execution report. That's if needed. It depends on if the major commands actually want one or not, and that's basically a report saying, here's where we are, here's what we've got left to spend. And this is when we start prioritizing our end-of-year purchases. You've all heard about the term fallout dollars at the end of the year. Start planning in the June time frame to posture your organization to get stuff with fallout dollars at the end of the year. When we say fallout dollars, we talk about money that for some reason or another just didn't get spent, and we're going into the month of September, and the fiscal year ends on 30 September at midnight, and we need to spend this money. And a lot of organizations and squadron commanders will think, okay, well, I could use $18 in pencils. Well, that's nice, But from the comptroller perspective, fallout money is usually in the tunes of $100,000 or so. So think bigger than $18 in pencils. Think of what needs and requirements you have in your organization that you couldn't accomplish as a squadron commander during that fiscal year because you didn't have the money. And make a valid case for it and be prepared to defend it so that going into September, you've got a valid argument to get those funds if they're available. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. July to September, we're buying our end-of-year purchases. We're scrubbing our account records. That is something your resource advisor should be doing for you. I know this never happens, but sometimes you go TDY and you get paid, and then finance sends you a letter saying, hey, are you ever going to file your voucher? And it never happens. But if it did, because the system made a mistake, your resource advisor would actually find that in the system and free up that money that's tied up for no reason. And then we have fiscal year closeout in September as well. So what's the wing commander's role in this whole thing? Well, the wing commander, like I said, is the holder of funds. It's his job or her job to manage the entire wing's budget. They set the tone for resource use. Pecuniary liability is a great legal term. In fact, that's a billable hour for me just saying that term for most lawyers. And pecuniary liability basically means that if anything bad happens financially, the wing commander goes to jail with the budget officer and the comptroller squadron commander. So basically the 2 or 3 of them get to arm wrestle as to who's making license plates and who's not. And then also the wing commander is the final decision authority for the allocation of wing resources. So understand that, because it's his or her vision that your group commander is going to try to marry up to in terms of execution of dollars. And you need to be aware of that. I don't know if General Lorenz spoke to you guys or not, but one of his leadership tips is always work your boss's priorities. It's the same when it comes to financial management stuff. Work your budget to work your boss's priorities. And that will help you be successful in the financial arena. Your group commanders, they're going to use your comptroller as a financial advisor. They're going to keep they want to keep the comptroller in the loop because your comptroller sees the funds across the wing and across the groups. And if they don't know what your group needs, then they're not going to be able to articulate and defend your needs to higher headquarters. And higher headquarters is the one that may have the money to fund your project. They also need to know all the programs within the group, and they want to understand what's going on big picture across the wing. So your group commander has an active role. And remember, they're also a voting member of that financial management board. Resource advisor. For those of you that are going to take command or going to take command in the near future, you will have a resource advisor in your organization. It's important that you pick the right person to be your resource advisor because they are going to manage your money on a day-to-day basis. They will not be a financial manager by AFSC unless they're at the group level. And even then, that's not always the case. For most of your folks, it's going to be an additional duty. They need to be able to make good judgments, sound judgments, and great interpersonal skills. If you think relationship building and relationships don't have anything to do with leadership or it doesn't have anything to do with successful financial management, you're fooling yourself. Because it's all about who you know and how you know and building those relationships. There's a story that, I don't know, General Lorenz may have shared it with you. He shares it with our students at the comptroller school. And he says that when he needed money as the Air Force budget guy, he would walk into the Air Force panel and dropped off a plate of cookies. Said, hey, just wanted to say hello. Thanks for all the hard work you do. And he left. It's about building relationships. So build relationships and make sure you have a resource advisor that's good at it also. Some of the duties of your resource advisor is preparing financial plans, your spend plans. Again, all the budget weenie bean counter type stuff that needs to happen in your organization, that's what your resource advisor does. And remember, they're going to represent you at that financial working group. So if you've got someone that cannot speak clearly or has no clue what your priorities are as a commander, that is not the right person to be sending to your financial working group. If you've got a need, a true need that you can't afford, make sure they can clearly understand it and clearly explain it to that financial working group, or else it won't get prioritized or see funding for the year. And then just so you know, if you do have a financial manager in your squadron, if your resource advisor is a financial management AFSC, your comptroller squadron commander or your comptroller squadron superintendent will be responsible for the training and development of that person. We don't expect you to know what training they need. Just make sure you touch base with that comptroller squadron commander, and they'll take care of those folks for you.